Mike Golic, Big Mike, Westwood One NFL analyst, and joining us on behalf of DraftKings, a sports podcaster. He will be on the call in the booth. Cowboys-Niners, Westwood One Sunday. Kickoff at 6:30 Eastern. Good to see you, Mike. The thing we're overrating about this game and the thing we're underrating about this game.
Well, I think what we're possibly overrating here, well, I don't know if it's overrating to say what Christian McCaffrey is doing, but we might be overrating saying that though I think San Francisco is the better team, there's a lot of people that think this is a team that's going to the Super Bowl. But Dallas played so well last week but inconsistently throughout the year. I actually did the first game, a couple of their games, the first game against Tampa Bay in week 1, which was a horrible game. So I actually think that it's possible that San Francisco could be overrated because winning 11 in a row, and Dallas can be a little underrated, even though they played very well last week. So I'd probably lean there. The guy that's been, and he's finally getting his due. We all said this at the beginning of the season. Let Pollard run the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got to be the guy over Zeke, but Zeke had been the man for so long. It was almost like you wanted to tiptoe into that and walk on eggshells when it was like, this guy is a proven better home run hitter than Zeke. He had a better year than Zeke. Zeke had career lows in rushing yards. So I think from an individual standpoint, Pollard has been the underrated one because I think people are afraid to step on the toes of Zeke Elliott when this is a meritocracy, man. You get the job done, you get the job, and Pollard deserves more time on the field.
But I wonder if this has to do with Jerry Jones giving Zeke Elliott that contract extension. And I, at the time, said, why do I want to get a running back like that 5 more years? Like, I got 5, I'll move on. And Pollard was the better running back and has been that home run hitter. So I don't know if that was ego that Jerry's like, no, he's got to play because I don't want to look like I just, wasted money.
Jerry Jones and ego? No, never. That would never happen, Dan. I mean, come on, seriously. Of course it was. I mean, we were all wondering why he was giving everybody in the world a deal instead of Dak Prescott, and then ends up having given Dak a deal after Dak gets hurt. Sure it was.
Yeah.
Every owner GM has an ego. We're going to find out what goes on in San Francisco down the road with Trey Lance. John Lynch as a GM, he's a great player, but now as a GM, he doesn't want to be wrong on the fact that they traded up to the number 3 spot for Trey Lance. They tried to force him in this year, and push Garoppolo aside. And let's be honest, San Francisco is where they are because Jimmy Garoppolo needed shoulder surgery. If he didn't need shoulder surgery, he would have been traded away. He'd have been gone. And Brock Purdy would have had to take over early in the season. We have no idea if he would have played that well early on. So, yeah, going back to Dallas and Zeke, yes, it was an ego of Jerry Jones, but Pollard has proven right now he is the better back in the backfield.
We had Albert Breer, the Monday morning quarterback, on last hour, and he brought up something that I had not heard about Brock Purdy because it's a small sample size. But I said, you get a feeling that you know who Brock Purdy is. He said he talked to a scout who said Brock Purdy had to be the best player on the field every single weekend at Iowa State if they had a chance to win. So it's not like he went in and went, hey, I got an offense around me. I have to be great every single weekend. And I think that philosophy is he's not a game manager. He wants to make plays. He's used to making big plays.
So I called a couple of his games at Iowa State where he set those 32 school records. So obviously when you're doing the games, you get a chance to sit down and talk with these guys. And he's extremely competitive. Now, a lot of guys in the sport are competitive. I mean, I think that can be an overused word. But to your point and what you're saying, you're right. He doesn't care who he has out there. It's not one of those, oh, give me more weapons. It's like, I'm going to make do with the weapons that I have. And he continued from that. Again, it would have been interesting, and I'm sure they're glad it didn't happen if Garoppolo was gone and Purdy did have to take over early on in the season if there would have been this much success. But he's a very confident guy, and confidence is great, but you still have to go execute on the field. He's also it's kind of a balancing act, Dan, because you got to give Brock Purdy all the credit in the world. But while we're throwing roses, let's also understand that the 3 touchdowns, his wide receivers had at least a 5-yard cushion. He was throwing to wide open receivers. Now, again, that was in a playoff game, and he's thrown well throughout. So before people sit there and say, oh, Golic's trashing this guy, he has done a great job. but you got to give Kyle Shanahan credit. And how about Brian Griese, who was taken over as the quarterback coach there as well? And the fact that, you know this, Dan, when we were teammates at ESPN, I mean, the trade deadline in the NFL was just a date. Nobody did anything. Now, Christian McCaffrey and TJ Hawkinson have shown, man, you can really make some hay at the trade deadline. So you have McCaffrey, you have Elijah Mitchell, you have Deebo Samuel, you have Brandon Ayuk, who has a career year, and George Kittle. So you now have a pre-snap read for Brock Purdy, who's a smart quarterback, to at least go, okay, I got a couple spots I can go here because I have monster mismatches on the field because of all this talent that's on the field. So it is working hand in hand with the weapons that he has, with the play caller and Shanahan he has, with the quarterback coach he has, and with Brock Purdy himself, who has really, really grabbed a hold of this situation.
He's Mike Golic. He'll be in the booth for the Cowboys and the 49ers, Westwood One Radio Sunday kickoff at 6:30 Eastern. How much of the pregame will you focus on Brett Maher kicking field goals or extra points?
Well, you have to. I go down on the field before every game to talk to players and coaches, and the kickers are the first ones out on the field. So you kind of get their range. You know, it certainly can be windy in San Francisco to see where there are ranges on both sides. But let me tell you, kickers got to be like golfers. I mean, what a mental side this has to be in this game, and the miss and then miss and then miss and then miss again. You know, I'm not one that says I feel bad for players. We're all on the field. We all are trying to make plays, and we all get embarrassed at times. It's like I feel bad for the family probably more than the player, but you got to put him back out there. I know they had another kicker in practice and they were going over and Brett made 5 of 5 and this other guy made 3 of 5. Brett's going to be the kicker. And you know what? You in the beginning, especially, you have to put him out there. You have to say, if you're going to have him on the active roster in the beginning of the game, you have to have the confidence to send him out there and make the kicks. So if he goes out there and doesn't make them again, then you rethink a 4th and 3 or a 4th and 4.
I mentioned this in the first hour of the show. How many great quarterbacks are there in the NFL? Like, truly great. Because I don't think the list is as long as people think. I would go, you got Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Rodgers and Brady are emeritus, but they're not great quarterbacks anymore.
Right.
I got Joe Burrow, who is great.
Yes. I
got Josh Allen, who's great. After that, who's great?
Well, I think Justin Herbert wants to jump into that category. I think you look what we have in the AFC side of the playoffs and these young quarterbacks. Wow, the future of that going forward. I think he's the next one that could bust into that category. But I agree more with you than others who say there are 8 to 10. I don't think there are. Truly great. Because you're juggling, you're right, the Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady of how can you not say they're great? But they're not playing their best right now. They're just not. Tom did last year play great, but this year did not. So I'm with you on the smaller amount. I would say that Justin Herbert is the next guy to jump into that. Maybe Jalen Hurts if he's healthy, proven he's can be the future quarterback of that team. But I'm a big Justin Herbert fan, even though I know a lot of people tear him down a little bit when they as they try and keep continuing to build that team around him.
I had somebody compare Dak Prescott. Do you want to guess who they compared Dak Prescott to? Current quarterback.
I'm horrible at guessing. Who was it?
Kirk Cousins.
Really? See, well, I mean, I guess until you get past a certain point, in the playoffs, and we know Dallas hasn't gotten past this point in a while, and Dak is over in this situation in the divisional round. So, until you pass a point, you get compared with those that haven't passed that point as well, while having good stats. So I get it. Kirk Cousins, who, I mean, all year we've doubted Minnesota, right? I mean, but this year seemed different because they were always behind Green Bay, and this year they were in front of Green Bay. But we were always like, you know what? Can they get it done? And we always pointed to Kirk Cousins. Quite honestly, their defense isn't very good. While Kirk Cousins worked the business of football better than anybody, I get not having the faith in him. And Dak has to prove for America's team that he can get past this point to get out of that comparison. So I understand it by how far you go.
Give me the surprise this weekend. I don't want to say upset, but because I don't know if Dallas beats the Niners, they're only a 4-point underdog or 3.5 now. You got an upset or a surprise?
Well, I actually called last week the Giants beating Minnesota. And as you know, it's all about us being right and not the game being right. It's about how good we look. So listen, the Giants, can they lose all three to Philly this year? You know, we went through that. I call the Cincinnati-Baltimore game last week. They had split during the regular season. I think a lot depends on Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts, does he kick all the rust off him? The Giants are hot right now. I think it's going to be very difficult for Jacksonville in Kansas City, though I love what Jacksonville's doing. Talking to Doug Peterson a few weeks ago, the main word for him, he said, with his team is trust. And God knows after last year and that debacle with Urban Meyer, the players needed to trust somebody. Yeah. But while I was a former Eagle and I loved being an Eagle, and I think they're an unbelievably complete team, Jalen Hurts and the injury, Jalen Hurts and the possible rust, and the way the Giants are playing, they're playing the way you can win in the playoffs. Run, control the ball, and play really good defense. Dexter Lawrence in the middle using his hands is so much fun to watch. I can't believe he and I played the same position, quite honestly. It's unbelievable what he's doing. So while all Eagle fans are saying Golic is a former Eagle, how the hell can you say this? The Giants are playing well right now, and the Eagles need Jalen to get back up to where he was playing before.
Always great to talk to you. Safe travels. My best to the family. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Dan. Good to talk to you.
That's Mike Golic, Westwood One. He'll be in the booth, the Niners and the Cowboys. I like that somebody's flipping through the dial, and they're used to hearing Golic on ESPN. They're like, wait, what? Good to have him back.